You probably know her best as Morticia Addams from The Addams Family, that gothic beauty with the unforgettable charm. But Carolyn Jones was so much more than just a spooky icon. From her mesmerizing beauty to her rebellious spirit and deep vulnerability, Carolyn was a woman who stood out in an industry that often tried to push women into neat little boxes. She didn't just fit the mold, she broke it and became one of the most fascinating figures of her time. But why did men adore her? What made Carolyn Jones not just an icon, but a mystery worth unraveling? Let's dive in. Her iconic look. There was something cinematic about Carolyn Jones before the camera even rolled. Her beauty wasn't loud, it whispered. It was the kind of beauty that didn't hit you all at once. No, it crept up on you scene by scene, glance by glance, until you were fully under her spell. Her cheekbones could cut glass, and in a time when soft and round was the Hollywood default, Carolyn's face looked carved, sharp, intelligent, almost feline, and those eyebrows arched just enough to add a bit of mystery, like she always knew something you didn't. She had this subtle way of tilting her head or raising an eyebrow that turned an ordinary moment into an unforgettable one. And her eyes, man, those eyes. They weren't just pretty, they were hypnotic. She didn't just look at you, she seemed to see through you. Soft, smoky, and thoughtful, like a woman who read poetry late at night and knew exactly how every story ended. They made you want to lean in closer, not just because she was beautiful, but because you felt like she knew your secrets. Then there was that hair, that inky black waterfall that framed her face like a gothic crown. Whether it was styled in a dramatic Morticia curtain or a sleek 50s do, it gave her this elegant, slightly untouchable vibe. The kind of look that didn't ask for your attention, it commanded it. And maybe that's the real reason men loved Carolyn Jones. She was different. She wasn't the sugar-sweet small-town beauty with a sunny laugh and an apron. She didn't fit into the usual Hollywood boxes. She was bold without being loud, sexy without being obvious, elegant with a twist of danger. She was the kind of woman who'd sip her drink slowly at the end of the bar, say little, and yet somehow become the only person in the room you couldn't stop watching. And once she had your attention, good luck looking away. Her enchanting voice. You ever hear someone talk and suddenly everything around you just fades? That was Carolyn Jones. Before she even finished her first sentence, you were already hooked. Her voice wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. It was low, smooth, and carried a kind of lazy elegance, like velvet sliding over warm skin. She had this soft-spoken, breathy tone that made every word sound like it was dipped in honey and secrecy. It was slow, deliberate, like she was in no rush, because she already knew she had your attention. You could almost feel the hush in the room when she spoke, as if everyone else paused to catch that whisper just before it disappeared. It wasn't just the tone, it was how she used it. There was control in the way she spoke, like a pianist playing a melody only she knew. She could lull you, tease you, intrigue you, sometimes all in the same sentence. It's the kind of voice that makes you lean in a little closer, unconsciously, without even realizing it. As Morticia Addams, she turned her voice into a spell. Every line she delivered was draped in elegance, mischief, and this quiet confidence that made you sit up straighter. She didn't yell. She didn't need punchlines or dramatics. Her voice did all the work, wrapping you in this mysterious comfort that felt equal parts danger and desire. But even off-screen in interviews or casual moments, Carolyn's voice had that same hypnotic pull. It was intelligent, thoughtful, and calm. Not a voice fighting to be heard, but one worth listening to. And in a world full of shouting to get attention, a woman who could whisper and make the whole room listen? That's unforgettable. She was mysterious. Some women wear their whole story on their face. Carolyn Jones? She made you guess. And the more you tried to figure her out, the deeper you fell. There was this quiet aura around her, like she knew something you didn't. She wasn't overly emotional, she wasn't too polished or too raw, she was just out of reach. And that's what made her magnetic. Every glance, every pause, every half-smile felt like a secret code. She wasn't trying to be mysterious, she just was. In Hollywood, a lot of actresses were open books. Carolyn was a locked journal. You might catch a glimpse of a page here and there through her roles, her voice, her eyes, but you'd never read the whole thing, not unless she let you. And trust me, she rarely did. That mystique worked in her favor. It gave her characters depth. Whether she was playing the sultry Morticia Addams or a dramatic role in a noir film, she carried this quiet storm inside her. A slow burn that made you want to stay and watch it unfold. She could say more with a look than most could with an entire monologue. Off-screen, it was the same. She didn't chase headlines. She wasn't throwing herself into scandals. You didn't hear wild stories about her in the tabloids every other week. She kept things private. She held her cards close to her chest. And in an industry that feeds on oversharing, her silence was seductive. She was the kind of woman who would walk past you on the street and leave you wondering for days who she was, where she was going, what she was thinking, and if she ever looked back. Mystique isn't something you can fake. You either have it or you don't. Carolyn Jones had it in every breath. Beauty with brains. Here's the thing. Carolyn Jones wasn't just mesmerizing. She was sharp, quick-witted, clever, and quietly brilliant in a way that made people lean in, not just to look, but to listen. She had this calm, intellectual energy that showed up in everything she did. Whether it was the characters she chose or the way she delivered a line, there was always this underlying sense that Carolyn was playing chess while others were still figuring out checkers. You could see it in her eyes. Those weren't just pretty eyes. They were thinking eyes. Eyes that studied you while making you think you were the one watching her. She wasn't loud about her smarts either. She didn't need to be. She let it show through her choices. You could feel it in the subtle way she shifted a scene, the depth she brought to what could have been shallow roles, the complexity she wrapped inside even the quietest lines. You got the sense that Carolyn wasn't just reading scripts, she was dissecting them. And get this, behind the Morticia persona, behind the glamour and gothic elegance, Carolyn was a total bookworm. She loved literature, poetry, art. She had a curiosity about the world that wasn't performative, it was real, authentic. She asked big questions, saw beneath the surface, and it showed in her work. Men loved her not just because she was beautiful, but because she made them think. She made them want to be smarter, sharper, more interesting. She made silence feel intelligent. She made mystery feel wise. In an industry that sometimes rewards style over substance, Carolyn Jones managed to be both without ever having to choose. She was effortlessly elegant. Carolyn Jones had that rare kind of elegance that wasn't loud, it lingered. It stuck in your head like a melody you couldn't place. And she didn't have to strut or sparkle to command attention. She just showed up and the room adjusted to her energy. Think about her as Morticia Addams, probably her most iconic role. That long, body-hugging black dress? It didn't just fit, it flowed. And the way she moved in it? Slow, smooth, and completely controlled, like she was gliding over air. No wasted movements, no rushed lines. She turned a simple walk across a room into a hypnotic moment. She could raise an eyebrow and say more than most actresses could with a full paragraph. And it wasn't just in that one role. Go back to her earlier films like House of Wax, 1953. Even when she played a victim, there was a poised stillness to her. No flailing, no screaming her head off. She gave you fear, but with control. She always seemed aware of the camera, aware of the moment, like she was dancing with it instead of just being captured by it. Even off-screen, her elegance was the real deal. In interviews from the late 50s and early 60s, she was soft-spoken and articulate, never trying to dominate the conversation. She spoke slowly, carefully, like someone who actually thought about what she wanted to say before she said it. That alone is rare in Hollywood, then and now. And don't forget, this woman rocked a pixie cut in the 50s when most actresses were still clinging to soft curls and safe beauty. Carolyn chopped it off and leaned into her angular features, her cheekbones sharp enough to slice through ego. That was elegance with edge, not trying to fit in, just quietly reinventing the rules. Men loved that about her. Women respected it. She wasn't trying to impress. She impressed anyway. She had what old-school stars like Grace Kelly had, but with a darker twist. Think champagne poured at midnight, still elegant, just with a little more mystery in the glass. She was a woman of steel. Don't let that beautiful face and elegance fool you. Behind all that beauty and elegance was a woman made of steel. Not the loud, in-your-face kind, the quiet kind. The kind that keeps going when most people would crumble. Take her health, for starters. In the early 1980s, Carolyn was diagnosed with colon cancer, a brutal fight by any measure. But instead of stepping back or disappearing from the public eye, she kept working. She was literally filming her role as Myrna Clegg on the soap opera Capitol while undergoing treatment. Let that sink in. This woman was acting on set with an oxygen tank nearby, barely able to walk, but still showing up, still delivering her lines with that same composed fire. That's not just professionalism. That's raw determination. That's strength wrapped in satin gloves. And it wasn't just her final years that showed her toughness. Early in her career, she hit wall after wall. She wanted to act, but she suffered from asthma and was constantly sick as a child. That didn't stop her. She pushed herself into speech classes, acting lessons, anything to sharpen her craft. And she didn't get handed fame on a silver platter. She clawed her way into it, one supporting role at a time until people started noticing her. Hollywood in the 50s was no picnic for women, especially women like her, unique looking, not the cookie-cutter blonde. But Carolyn didn't try to change herself to fit the mold. She made the mold shift. She stood out by being exactly who she was, sharp, strange, elegant, and unshakable. Behind the glamorous dresses and that mysterious gaze was a woman who knew pain, pushed through it, and kept her dignity intact. Even in her darkest moments, she didn't beg for sympathy. She kept her head high and her presence unshaken. That's the kind of strength that doesn't need to scream, it just shows up and stays. She stole the show. She could be in a film for 5 minutes, and somehow when the credits rolled, she's the one you were still thinking about. It wasn't about volume. She didn't shout. She didn't overact. She owned a scene the way a candle owns the dark, quietly but completely. Whether she was playing a seductive villain, a lovesick girl, or the eerie, elegant Morticia Addams, you couldn't look away. There was always something happening behind her eyes, always a mystery you wanted to solve but never could. Take The Bachelor Party, 1957. Carolyn had a small role, just one extended scene in a bar, but she walked in, gave this lonely, vulnerable, beautifully layered performance, and practically stole the movie from a cast full of men who had way more screen time. She played sadness like a song, and audiences felt it. Or think about her in Invasion of the Body Snatchers, 1956. Not a huge role, but again, she lit up every frame. When she was on screen, she gave even the quiet moments this underlying buzz, like something unpredictable might happen. That's charisma, and it's rare. And don't even get us started on the Addams family. That role could have been cartoonish in the wrong hands. But Carolyn played Morticia with such poise, such low-key sensuality, such deadly calm that you had to watch her. Her voice was velvet, her movements precise, and her eyes? They said everything with a single glance. Men loved that because it wasn't forced. She wasn't desperate for attention, she just naturally drew it. You know that kind of woman who walks into a room, doesn't say a word, and somehow everyone turns their head? That was Carolyn Jones. Scene after scene, year after year, she didn't just act, she haunted the camera. She was soft-hearted. For all the elegance and mystery Carolyn Jones carried on screen, those who knew her behind the scenes saw someone very different. Beneath the cheekbones and Morticia gowns was a woman who was deeply kind. She wasn't cold or unapproachable like some of the characters she played. She was warm, generous, and incredibly grounded. People who worked with her often said she was the kind of actress who made everyone feel important. She'd remember crew members' names. She'd bring little gifts or handwritten notes to co-stars. Even when she was dealing with long days and heavy scripts, she didn't bring ego onto set, just heart. And the way she handled pain was simply proof of her quiet strength. Carolyn battled colon cancer for years, mostly out of the spotlight. She didn't use it for attention. She didn't complain. She kept working, even during treatment. When she reprised her role as Morticia in The Addams Family reunion in the late 70s, she was already seriously ill. But you'd never know. She showed up, smiled, performed, and gave it her all. That's resilience. That's grace. And earlier in life, she also dealt with serious health issues. As a child, she had severe asthma, so bad that it kept her indoors for long periods. That's actually how she fell in love with movies, by watching them alone while trying to breathe easier. Instead of becoming bitter, she became dreamy. That sense of imagination followed her throughout her career, and you can feel it in the way she portrayed her characters. She was the kind of woman people remembered fondly, not just because she was beautiful or talented, but because she treated people with decency and care. In an industry full of sharp elbows, Carolyn Jones was quietly a soft soul, and that only made her more unforgettable. She was fearlessly unique. Let's be real, 1950s and 60s Hollywood had a type. Blonde, bubbly, wide-eyed, and ready to play the sweet girl next door or the bombshell with a giggle. But Carolyn Jones? She didn't follow the script. She carved out her own lane and owned it. While other actresses were chasing the Marilyn Monroe formula, Carolyn was out here playing brooding women with secrets, mysterious seductresses, or slightly unhinged dream girls. In House of Wax, 1953, she played a scream queen with a morbid end, but even as she was being turned into a wax figure, you couldn't take your eyes off her. There was something electric in the way she moved and delivered her lines, like she wasn't just reading a script, but casting a spell. In The Bachelor Party, 1957, she played the existential girl, a beatnik before most of America even knew what that meant. Black turtleneck, smoky voice, deep emotional dialogue. That role earned her an Academy Award nomination, not because it was flashy, but because it was different, real, oddly haunting. And then, of course, came The Addams Family. Morticia Addams wasn't supposed to be sexy. She was supposed to be strange, but Carolyn made her both. She turned a spooky, ghoulish matriarch into a sultry, elegant, iconic figure, and she did it without raising her voice, without trying to be cute, just by being unapologetically herself. She chose roles that were risky, roles that didn't guarantee glamour or applause, roles that made people think. Carolyn didn't care about fitting in, she cared about standing out. She brought poetry to weirdness. She made dark beauty desirable. And in doing so, she became something no studio could manufacture, one of a kind. She was rebellious. Carolyn Jones didn't just act in offbeat roles. She lived with a kind of quiet rebellion that made her stand out in the Hollywood crowd. In an era when actresses were expected to play by the rules, smile pretty, stay quiet, look glamorous, Carolyn did things her own way. She didn't chase the safe, fluffy roles designed to keep women in neat little boxes. Instead, she leaned into characters with edge, with darkness, with complexity. She played a lonely, seductive neighbor in The Bachelor Party and earned an Oscar nomination for it. In Invasion of the Body Snatchers, she played against the grain in a genre film that would go on to become iconic. And of course, in The Addams Family, she took on Morticia Addams, a character that was the exact opposite of what Hollywood wanted women to be: pale, gothic, morbid, mysterious, and utterly magnetic. But Carolyn's rebellious streak wasn't just in her work. When she was diagnosed with colon cancer in the early 1980s, she refused to give in to the disease, or let it define her. She kept acting, even while undergoing treatment. On the soap opera Capitol, she wore wigs and filmed scenes between hospital visits, not because she needed the money, but because she loved the craft. She was determined to live, to work, and to stay in control of her story until the very end. That kind of quiet defiance, no shouting, no dramatics, just pure strength, is the kind of rebellion that truly inspires. It wasn't performative, it was personal. And to the people who knew her or even just admired her from afar, that spirit was impossible not to respect and love. She didn't follow the crowd. She carved her own path. And she did it with grace, grit, and a quiet fire burning behind her eyes. Her sense of humor. Carolyn Jones didn't need to shout or tell corny jokes to be funny. Her humor was sharp, elegant, and always perfectly timed. That famous Morticia Addams deadpan? It wasn't just acting. Carolyn had a natural gift for dry wit, sarcasm, and the kind of sly, under-the-radar one-liners that made people laugh and think. On The Addams Family, she delivered lines like, "Don't torture yourself, Gomez, that's my job," with such effortless chill that it became iconic. But behind the scenes, she was just as quick-witted. Her castmates often talked about how she'd break tension with a quip or slip in a line so perfectly sarcastic it would leave the whole room laughing, without ever raising her voice. Carolyn's humor wasn't goofy or over the top, it was refined mischief. She could make you laugh while still looking like the most mysterious woman in the room. It was the kind of humor that surprised you. You didn't expect it from someone so poised, so striking, and that only made it more irresistible. In interviews, she'd often joke about her typecast roles or Hollywood's obsession with blonde bombshells, saying things like, "I like the strange ones. The creepy girls always have more fun." That kind of self-aware sass made people lean in, listen closer, and fall a little harder. Men, and let's be honest, pretty much everyone, love a woman who can laugh at the world and at herself. Carolyn had that rare kind of charm. She could roast you with a smile, win you over with a wink, and leave you wondering how she managed to be both hilarious and haunting all at once. She aged like fine wine. Hollywood has never been kind to women as they grow older. It chews them up, praises their beauty in their 20s, and then quietly pushes them aside. But not Carolyn Jones. She didn't disappear. She didn't try to claw her way back into the spotlight with desperate stunts. She showed up with dignity, with strength, and with a whole lot of heart. As she aged, Carolyn didn't chase youth. She didn't drown herself in surgery or try to be someone she wasn't. She let the years show, and somehow that only made her more powerful. She still had that signature grace, the cheekbones, the voice, the quiet magnetism, but now it came with layers of wisdom and life experience. She wasn't just beautiful, she was real. And when life threw her its biggest curveball, colon cancer, she didn't fold. She kept working, even when she was sick. Her final role was on the soap opera Capital, where she played Myrna Clegg, a tough, scheming matriarch. What no one could fully see on screen was that Carolyn was filming those episodes while fighting for her life. She wore wigs to cover the hair loss, pushed through the pain, and delivered every line like the pro she was. She didn't make her illness a spectacle. She didn't beg for sympathy. She just kept going. That quiet determination, that grit mixed with grace, is something you don't forget. It's the kind of thing that stays with you. It makes you admire her even more, because anyone can be charming when things are easy. But Carolyn Jones showed the world what real beauty looks like when things get hard, and she did it with style, strength, and soul.